man that currently is a 19-0 record with 15 KOs. He's ranked number 5 by the WBA, number 7 by the IBF, number 12 by the WBO, and number 14 by the WBC, a lightweight contender. He goes by the nickname Prince, and that is none other than Lucas Bahdi. Lucas, appreciate you for taking time to come on today.
Thank you, Zach. Pleasure to have me, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, it's been a few months to get out of the ring now. I know you're obviously probably looking for your next fight, but just overall now, what's life been like over the past few weeks, past couple months?
Uh, well, now I'm ramping up my training. I got a fight coming up,
Okay.
so I'm lining up the sparring, lining up the training sessions, and getting ready to rumble.
Absolutely. Now, I want to ask, 'cause I know you were at the Jake Paul Julio Cesar Chavez card this past weekend. When you were in there in the atmosphere, what was that like?
It was an unbelievable atmosphere,
Right.
actually. Like the amount of Mexican fans that were there was insane.
Yeah.
Anytime Chavez even threw a punch, they were going crazy. So it was a great full full stadium.
Right.
Uh, Everyone loved it. I thought the fights were great.
I want to ask you about most valuable promotions. That's obviously who you're signed to right now. You work alongside. When you talk about what they've done for boxing, I know some people are against the Jake Paul situation. I personally am in big favor of what they're doing and what they're building out there. You get experience it firsthand, though. What's your thoughts on that promotion?
It's amazing. It brings tons of eyes. The networks love it. I mean, even the guys that hate on it, they're still turning on the TV and watching. So
Right.
at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
You had the option back after you had your massive upset. We'll get into a little bit later. You had the option to sign with multiple different promotion groups. You chose MVP. Why was that the case?
I thought it was the best deal for me, and
Mm,
they were the best promoter suited for me.
okay. When you talk about what they can bring to boxing long term, you look at the overall aspect, how they can build. I mean, they're doing great things with women's. Obviously, the card coming up in a week is incredible on that end as well. What do you see them doing, and how big will they be for boxing in the future?
I mean, on this side of the world, they're huge. Like in North America,
Right,
Turkey's kind of taken over. He's what 51% of Queensberry. Eddie Hearn works with him tons,
right.
so he's kind of got that side on lock. And here on this side, like Top Rank lost their deal with ESPN.
Yep.
Now it's basically MVP and Golden Boy, and they're working together, which is great.
Mm.
But yeah, I see Jake doing an MVP doing big things, not just in female boxing, but and also in the male division.
Well, you said right there that I respect about MVP is that they are willing to work with different groups. That's something that has been a big issue in boxing for quite some time. When you look at the impact that's going to have now in your career, knowing that you will have the opportunity to be with a promotion that's saying, you know what, it doesn't really matter who you're with, we will find a way to make that fight happen. How much more excited does that make you for your future?
It's huge because sometimes politics get in the way of the big fights.
Yep.
MVP is willing to work with anybody. At the end of the day, they just want to put on amazing fights for the crowds,
Right.
and that's important to get the big fights. So having them on my team is major.
In regard to Jake Paul, I know he's also been someone that's the promoter, obviously doing the fighting aspect as well. You've been able to work alongside him now for about roughly almost a year now. When you talk about him outside of the ring, because I know once again he's a very controversial figure. A lot of people don't know him and what he's like on the business side, that aspect. What is he like in that component?
Oh, he's a great guy. He's got good sense of humor. He works hard.
Mm,
He's dedicated to his craft, and at the end of the day, he's a businessman. But he's very smart, and his boxing ability is improving every time he steps in.
absolutely. Now I want to get into your career so people can get to know you better, Lucas. But before I go any further, I have to ask you this question. You have the nickname Prince. Where did that come to be? How'd you get that nickname?
That came from the amateurs,
Mm.
probably like 2012, and it kind of just stuck.
Is there a story behind it, or who kind of gave it to you, and how did you kind of run with it then?
Yeah, somebody announced me in the ring as you know Prince Lucas Body, and ever
Okay.
since then we just ran with it.
Absolutely, man. Well, let's go into this other part. You're from Canada, Niagara Falls, Ontario, to be more specific. And growing up out there, what was it like growing up in that out there?
Um, Niagara is a small city,
Right.
so you know growing up playing other sports like hockey and soccer, you're playing against the big cities like the Toronto, Mississauga, and we it was tough. It was tough competing against them because they got huge population compared to us.
Right.
But it gives you that fighting edge. You know what I mean? You really wanna win against these bigger cities and bigger teams. So I think that's what gave me that fight. That fight in me came from other sports, and
Mm.
it it basically it wanted me to train into a sport that I didn't have to rely on anyone else. I
Okay.
wanted to be a world champion, and I wanted to be the best fighter in the world, and that's how it came along.
When you made that transition into boxing, why did you make that change? Why did you say, you know what, boxing is what's kind of meant for me? I feel like this is the right sport. Why was that the case for you?
Just I was super competitive, and
Okay.
anytime I played any other sport, I wanted to start a fight.
All right. When you made that transition, when did you start to realize that you have the potential to go become the type of fighter that you are today?
That's a good question. Because the first time I, fought in, provincials and nationals, I came up short, and all
Mm.
my other teammates were winning golds. Uh, but I think it gave me, a drive. Like I got that competitive edge to me. So
Okay.
when you see other guys doing better, your teammates, we had that inner competition within our circle.
Mm.
Um, I think that gave me the motivation and the drive to win and be the best.
Okay. So if I would have told that younger Lucas, when you're in your middle teens, let's say per se, I would say, by year 2025, you're going to be a man that's ranked in the top 15 of all the different sanctioning bodies. You're a man that's going to be potentially setting yourself up for a world championship fight in the near future. 19 of 15 KOs at this point. What would your reaction have been?
Um, well, it's a good question. I mean, for me, if you're not the best in the world, you still got lots of work to do. So
Mm.
I probably wouldn't have been too excited.
Okay.
Um, I'm on my way there, and it's the future's looking bright, but I still got lots of work to do.
Right. I know you've opened up and spoken about being from Canada, and obviously you don't necessarily get a lot of the respect. It's not as easy, I should say, for guys coming out of Canada to become the world level fighter that you are now. When you talk about that aspect, has the challenges, the difficulties of becoming the person that you are today, because it's not an easy route becoming the type of high level boxer you are, has that helped make you into the man and the fighter that you are today?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, there's probably tons of aspects that really formed me to who I am today. But yeah, coming from Canada, there's not much spotlight on us.
Right.
That's why you need that promoter like an MVP or a major promoter to really shine some light on us.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I think there's tons of aspects that really formed me to who I am.
When you look at the large scale aspect of Canada, for it to become a country where, a lot more spotlight is given to it in the boxing realm, what would it take for that to happen, do you believe?
You need consistency with events,
Mm.
and you need the promoters to work together and build it. But no one really works together in Canada.
Mm.
The two big promoters, I would say, were Eye of the Tiger and United Promotions. I mean, they do some co-promotion together, but it needs to be more consistent. And at the end of the day, you need a TV network
Mhm.
to really get the views and really get that spotlight on you. So without that, it's really tough. But yeah, I think it starts with the big promoters really working together.
You being out in Canada, you see some of these things that more so than probably someone like I do in America see. Do you feel like there is a chance? Like, do you feel like there is potential where things, and maybe let's say even if it's 10, 15 years, Could there be a larger spotlight on Canada boxing when we look in the large scale scheme of things in like 10, 15 years?
Absolutely. I mean, back in, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago, Quebec was doing some major things.
Yep.
They had so many great fighters come out of there. Like you got, Lucien Boutte, um, uh, Jean Pascal.
Right.
Uh, I mean, now you got Beterbiev.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so many world champions. Adonis Stevenson. They had a great thing going. They were hosting fights all the time, and they had a network back then. So could it happen? Absolutely. The talent is definitely here.
Specifically speaking on Ontario, I know they've had a lot of rule changes in regards to weigh-ins, also the hand wrappings. That was something that prevented a lot of big fights from happening over the duration of the past few years now. With that transformation now happening, does that open the door to have more big fights to be hosted out there in Ontario now?
For sure,
Okay.
because that was a major roadblock for a lot of fighters coming here. Nobody wants to weigh in the day of the fight.
Yeah.
We're like the only province and probably one of the only places in the world that had that day of weigh-in, which was just not very smart, I guess.
Right.
And yeah, the hand wrap rule, that was absolutely nonsense. So thank God that's out the window. Now we can actually protect our hands properly.
Mm. When you also talk about your amateur career, you had roughly 100 fights. You were part of the national team in 2014 to 2018. When you reflect back on that point in your life, what was that experience like at the amateur ranks?
Um, the experience of actually getting in the ring and fighting was great.
Mm-hmm.
But the Canadian system, it wasn't great at the time. We weren't getting that many fights. I would have loved to fight twice, three times as much as I did.
Mm.
Especially on the international stage, you really need that if you want to compete with the countries like Cuba and America and
Right.
all the European countries. It's tough if you're not in there on a regular basis fighting like the top guys in the world. So that was one thing that Canada wasn't great at, was when we would go to international tournament. It was like almost like a deer in the headlights because we weren't used to it.
Mm.
And these other countries, like they're fighting every weekend, every other weekend, whatever. They got hundreds of international fights.
Now, I'm not sure if you have an eye still on the amateur scene out there in Canada, but would you say that since you were there, you kind of left, and I guess it's been 7 to 8 years now, has it improved at all? Or is that still a problem that needs addressing out there in Canada?
As what I'm hearing, it's definitely improving.
Okay.
I'm not, in the scene anymore, so I don't really know
All right.
what's going on. So it's hard for me to give you a take on that.
Okay. I also want to ask about another aspect. I know reading about some research about you, you had a pursuit. You wanted to go be a part of the Olympics, as a lot of boxers do. You ended up not going that route. You ended up turning pro instead of that. What led to that decision? Why did you decide to go pro as opposed to going for the Olympics and what would have essentially been the 2021 Olympics?
At the time, they took out the 60 kilogram weight division,
Right.
and there was already a Canadian representative at the time. It was 64 kg,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew I was going to get an opportunity to fight for that position.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that they were just going to send the guy that was there,
Okay.
and I had a bad feeling. They screwed me in 2016, and I knew that he was going to screw me again. And I'm very happy with my decision because
Right.
I would have had to wait another year for the Olympics.
Right.
So, everything happens for a reason. And yeah, luckily it worked out in my favor.
Was that transition for yourself from the amateur ranks to the pro ranks? Would you say that was a pretty seamless transition? I mean, I feel like your ability, obviously, you're more of a pro style fighter, but do you feel the transition was easy for yourself, or how was that transition?
Good question. It's a total different sport.
Yeah.
It's a total different sport. I think my style really matched the pros.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like it took a few years to really properly understand the difference and get
Mm-hmm.
that experience to fight, 10 rounds.
Right.
I remember, like, as an amateur, I'd spar 3 rounds and I'd be fucking toast, man. I'd be so tired,
Right.
straight up. And now, like, I come off like the couch and spar 6 rounds, no problem. It's kind of I know it's a different pace, but it's also a different mindset,
Yeah.
and it's totally different. As an amateur, it's like go 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 go,
Yeah.
and now I kind of get to relax and think about things. I mean, you don't want to start too slow, but there's kind of got to be that happy medium.
Right. Now, to kind of go a little bit deeper on that, because obviously a lot of people that tune into this do not exactly have experience of jumping from the amateur to the pro ranks. There is a massive difference, obviously, with the 3 rounds aspect. You can kind of go all out. When you have obviously the longer rounds, you have more pace and different things like that. What would you say would probably be the most difficult portion of that transition from amateur to pro, the hardest aspect of that transition, at least for yourself? What would that be?
The hardest, I think, the hardest thing is to keep that focus for 10 rounds straight. And
Mm,
I mean, in this sport, you lose focus for a split second, you could be on the canvas.
right.
That's the difference between the amateurs and the pros. Most guys can't focus 100% for 10, 12 rounds. That, I think, is the hardest part about pro boxing.
I like that take, man. So 2020 rolls around. COVID year, we already know about that situation. Obviously, impacted everybody differently. For boxers, shut down the whole boxing scene for the most part. But there is a story I want to get into. You decided to go out there and fight in Mexico. That's pretty much your only option out there. And now, correct me if I'm wrong on any of these portions of the story, but you end up going out there and fighting Alejandro Hernandez. You had a broken hand going in. You break your hand, the other hand now in the midst of that fight. You also don't have a coach there because of the restrictions from COVID. That had to be quite the situation there. So, like I said, if I'm wrong in those positions, kind of correct me there, but kind of just give us that story. What all happened in 2020 when you fought out there in Mexico?
Yeah, I mean, you basically nailed it.
Okay.
I broke my hand before the fight, and I was just so pissed off at the world that I couldn't get a fight. And I said, I don't care. I'm going to go anyway. I'm going to fight. If I have to use my right hand, I'll use it.
Mm,
But, you know, I'll try to box him one-handed,
right.
left-handed. And I ended up breaking my left hand in the first round. It was
Mm,
just crazy, unlucky, call it whatever you want. I had to really, really dig deep that fight, and not a lot of things were going my way. He dug a body shot on me that really, really hurt.
mhm.
It wasn't looking pretty, I'll tell you that. I was taking a lot of little shots. My eyes were swelling
Mm.
big time. I could barely see out of them. Uh, the gloves were just, I can't even tell you. Like, no one would sanction these gloves in any state. They were probably 30 years old. There was
Oh,
no padding left.
wow.
So yeah, it was wild, man. I pulled off a beautiful knockout in the fourth round
Hmm.
after taking a beating. But yeah, it was insane, man. I had to dig deep.
That's a unique situation that we've now seen it again happen in your career, obviously against H2O, we'll talk about momentarily. What about you it puts you in those situations because that's such a difficult thing. You're taking beating, you're losing, whatever the case may be, but you find that miraculous one hit. Only sport in the world where you can go out there and erase a deficit in 1 second. You found a way to do that multiple times now in your career. How do you do that?
Got a big set of balls, man.
All right.
I dig deep, and I always find a way to win. And I think
Mm.
that's what separates me from everyone else. You got to find a way to win, even when things aren't going your way.
When we go back to the fight in Mexico, you're in a situation you said you have no coach, both your hands are broken. Obviously, that shot would be pretty painful on yourself in and of itself just because of the fact you're hitting with a broken hand. When you just break through and you have that moment where you drop him, you get the win in the fourth round, what goes through your mind?
Oh man, it was like a huge relief.
Mm.
Yeah, I can't even explain that. It was, you're going through these rounds where like, holy man, you're thinking, how can I get this guy out of there? And you finally pull it off, and it's just like a huge weight off your shoulders, man.
If I were to known you at that point in time, you're going through the COVID pandemic. You just recently have now turned pro. You're going through a tough fight right there in Mexico. Would you expect to have been in the situation, the place that you're at today, at that moment in time?
Would I expect to be where I am at that time?
Correct.
Um, I thought I would have been here sooner, to be honest.
Okay.
Things didn't progress as fast as I expected. I thought as I like when I turned professional, I thought 3 years I'll be in the position that I am right
Mm.
now.
Gotcha.
But it's been six. It's been double.
Mm.
So sometimes good things take time, right? You gotta
Right.
just roll with the punches. And the good thing about me is I live a very, very clean lifestyle. I don't party. I don't
Mm.
do nothing negative to my body. So I'm a very young 31-year-old.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, what else could I say? I'm still learning. I'm still getting better.
Right.
So I think that's a very important factor as well.
For so many people that are not fighters, they don't understand the patience that comes with being a boxer. It can take a long time to reach the position that you're at. And you kind of alluded to that right there. There's so much politics to get involved. There's so many different situations. And then you throw in the aspect you had to deal with the COVID pandemic as well, which was not helpful. When you talk about just the patience, the determination, saying, you know what, I know I can be great. It might take time. It's not going my way. What kept you so bought in? What kept you so determined and focused on your career throughout all those ups and downs?
That's just something I'm born with, man.
Okay.
You just keep pushing forward, keep that mindset on the target, and never give up, man. It's a hard way to think, but I think that's something you got to be instilled with you from the beginning.
Absolutely. Let's fast forward to the moment, which is just about nearly 1 year ago now, that kind of puts you on the spotlight around the whole world now, made you a massive name. You go out there, 3 week notice to begin with. You're fighting a guy in H2O who is obviously a very highly regarded prospect at that point in time. And you take this fight on 3 weeks' notice. Can you just take us to the negotiating process? How'd that fight just come to be to begin with?
I just got a call. They called me 3.5 weeks out, and I wasn't in the gym because I just fought like 3 or 4 weeks before, so I took
Right.
some time off. And they gave me a call, and I really had to think about it. Not that I thought long about it because the fight got made within 24, 48 hours.
Okay.
But I thought, this is the opportunity that I've been waiting for.
Hmm.
I watched some video of him, and I thought, there's no way this guy is gonna last 10 rounds with me. I knew he was very, very talented. He was a special prospect. But in a 10-round fight, like I said, it's very hard to stay focused for every minute of every round
Hmm.
in 10 rounds. And I just knew that I'm going to knock this kid out. I'm going
Right.
to get him. I'm just going to be tough, and I'm going to get him late. I thought I was going to get him like 7 to 10. I actually got him out in the six, so it
Right.
happened a little sooner than I expected, but it went exactly the way I expected it to.
You talked about something, and I forgot about that component too. That you obviously were not going to be in a complete in boxing shape, I should say. Obviously, you took 3 or 4 weeks out, so you're kind of semi in shape, I should say. But when you're in a position, you get this phone call, and you realize it can be a life changing ultimate or opportunity as it ends up being for yourself. But at the same time, you're not 100% locked in and focused as you would have been for a normal fight camp. When you're in that type of situation, what was the pros and cons, and why did you ultimately choose to say, you know what? I'm going to take this fight, even though it's not, the number one position shape and all those things I could have been in.
I just knew that there's no way this guy's going 10 rounds without me catching him.
Okay.
And when he gets hit clean. And I mean, the combination I landed on him, he couldn't get cleaner than that.
Right.
Um, yeah, I'm always in decent shape, so I thought, train hard for the 3 weeks and I'll be ready, and I'm gonna knock this kid out.
Well, let's go into that fight now. As I said, nearly 1 year ago, 6 round KO. On the scorecards, you're down all of them. When you get that KO, first of all, did you realize that you were down on all the scorecards? And then if so, how much more sweet did that make the victory knowing that you now have that win in the bag?
I mean, I wasn't focused on scorecards.
Okay.
Didn't think I was gonna go there and win a decision.
All right.
That wasn't on my mind. So losing rounds didn't matter to me.
Mm.
The ultimate goal was to knock him out. So I knew that he's gonna get a little bit slower every round, a little bit slower every round, and later rounds I'm gonna catch him.
Okay.
Simple as that. I mean, if we fought again, probably the same thing would happen. If he'd probably win the early rounds, and I would knock him out.
That was actually my follow up question then. I know there's been rumors, people have talked about the fact that they want to see the rematch. Is that on the table? Is that something we can actually see down the road?
If there's benefit to me, for sure. I mean,
Okay.
right now, if I fought him, I'd be taking a step backwards. It doesn't make sense. He's got no value. He hasn't fought since. I mean, other than me, he hasn't fought anyone else. So
Right.
I'm I'm looking for world titles. I'm not looking to satisfy Joe Blow for a rematch. I mean, it makes no sense. My next fight, I'm going to be fighting a former world champion and a guy that's ranked in the top 10. So it's like I said, I'm looking for the world titles. I'm looking for the big major fights. I'm not looking to take a step backwards.
Absolutely. Now, I also want to ask you this other aspect. Your life has changed drastically. When that knockout happened, you get knockout of the year. You end up getting your name blown up around the entire world. You become an international brand in a sense now. Did you expect that night to change your life in the ways that it has now?
I expected it to do bigger things, to be honest.
Okay.
I did. I thought it was, things were going to completely change. I mean, of course, it brought me some big opportunities and things changed slightly, but
Right.
I thought it was going to be much, much bigger than what it was.
Okay. We fast forward then, and you get to take place on a fight card at the Cowboy Stadium. I want to ask about that experience. That card was incredible. You talk about Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. That card was massive. It was a massive venue, incredible experience. You getting to fight inside of a football stadium in America. What was that experience like?
I mean, it was the biggest card of the century.
Yeah.
I never would have thought in a million years I'd be fighting on the same card as Mike Tyson, which is
Right.
absolutely insane. So the opportunity that Jake and MVP gave me I was honored to be there and fight on that card. Brought thousands and thousands, and I mean, for my fight, I think we had about almost a million viewers.
Right.
I know they reached crazy numbers,
Yeah.
but as far as mine, I almost had a million. So like that's major for me.
We talked about the most valuable promotions in the beginning of this interview, but that's something else I want to touch up on. And I've always said that regardless of what people feel about Jake Paul in the situation there, the amount of attention that he's putting on so many guys on the undercard to get more attention spotlights they probably wouldn't have had otherwise is what's huge for the sport. And that's why I don't like taking shots at any of those situations there. When you talk about that, where you now and so many others, like obviously Amanda Serrano was in that fight. You obviously had Ramos on that fight. You had a lot of great fights going down. How big is that for the sport when you just talk about the amount of eyes now being drawn onto you guys and the undercards?
It's huge. It's huge. What else? What else could I say? I mean,
Right,
he also brings a total different audience than the regular boxing community.
right.
So it's amazing for everyone, from the networks to the fighters to everyone involved, and it makes the atmosphere so much more better when you're there in person.
Last fight I want to talk about before we talk about future plans for yourself. You fought March 7th in Toronto, Canada, headlining. What was that fight like?
It was a great fight. The kid
Yeah.
was a very good fighter, southpaw, strong,
Hmm.
and the fact that no one knew him, they didn't know what to expect. But that kid was a very good fighter, and
Right.
I think he's going to surprise people in the future. Um, I won on the scorecards very clear,
Yeah.
and I felt great in there. I thought I could have done a little bit more, but like I said, that kid was a very good fighter, and it was my first time fighting the southpaw as a pro.
Hmm.
But yeah, all in all, I was happy with it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but my guess is you want to take the Southpaw fight to help prepare you possibly for some other big opportunities at 135. Was that part of the mindset behind it? Is that why you want to take that fight?
Exactly. That was
Okay.
that was the whole objective of having him come in and fight.
Right.
Three of the four world champions are southpaw, so it's
Exactly. Yep.
you got to start getting used to it.
Well, let's talk about future plans for yourself. You have yourself in great position right now. You are, as I said, top 15 ranked all across the board, all the different sanctioning bodies. You have opportunities to fight for many big fights right now. When can we see you back in the ring? What's in store for you in that regard?
I'll be back at the end of August. It's going to be announced probably in the next week or so.
Okay.
Uh, Big fight, probably for a WBA title.
All right.
And yeah, like I said, I'll be fighting a former world champion. So I'm not gonna spill the name yet, but it'll be announced very soon.
All right. The WBA is the one I would have guessed you're going to possibly going for because we know Lamont Roach is most likely going to vacate it in the near future. Would this one most likely be for the interim title for the time being, or would it be for the full-on title, and assuming that Lamont Roach then moves on?
My next fight, no, it won't be.
Okay.
It won't be the interim, but it'll probably be one below that.
Okay, so more of the title eliminator in a sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you talk about the situation, obviously we don't know exactly who the person is, at least we don't, but when you talk about that moment, what do you see happening in that fight, and where do you see that fight taking you then in the future?
This one should get me, in the top three for sure.
Right.
It's going to be a great fight. I think it's going to be an exciting fight. But at the end of the day, someone's got to go to sleep, and it's not going to be me.
All right. I love that. Now, there is something I just want to throw out there for yourself. I know obviously you have this other fight lined up right now. There is a man that just fought this past weekend, had a quite the statement victory, Floyd Schofield Jr. I know some people have had some rumblings and saying that would be a great fight between you two, whether that be now for the WBA interim, that be possibly, I guess, after this upcoming fight for yourself. Is that a fight you'd entertain? Would that entice you in terms of that fight being made?
Absolutely. I'd love to fight next after this one at the end
Okay.
of the August. Hopefully, all the cards play out nicely, and that's the way that's the way it goes. Fight this guy, get a top three position, fight Schofield for a title eliminator or interim title, whatever.
All right. Well, I guess that kind of answers my next question. So I just want to ask you to follow up to that point I was going to ask you, and that is, okay, let's look at the next year for yourself. That put us right around summertime of next year. Where do you see yourself at that point in time?
World champion.
All right. I love it.
World champion, yeah, I plan on fighting world title, within the next 12 months for sure.
All right. Now, I just want to pick your mind since you obviously know the scene at 135 quite well. There are quite a few big fights happening in the division within the next 8 weeks, I should say. I just want to see your prediction on some of them. First one up, we know Tank Roach hasn't officially been announced yet, but I think we all know it's happening August 16th. Who do you see winning that rematch?
Man, I'm the worst at predicting fights unless they're my own.
All right.
uh, um, I see Tank winning, but
Okay.
man, this is boxing. Anything could happen on any given night.
Right.
Lamont looked very, very good against Tank the first fight, and now that he's got to experience being in the ring with him, you just never know in this sport.
Right. The other two, one Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda, they're going to be fighting each other in the very near future as well. We're about 7, 8 days, or I guess 9 days out now from that, 10 days out from that one. Who do you see winning that fight?
At first, I was thinking Zepeda, but now I'm really leaning towards Stevenson. I think he's just going to give him a boxing lesson.
All right. What made you make that shift now?
Stevenson is a tremendous fighter.
Yeah.
and I just don't think he's gonna close the distance. I just think he's too good on his feet. His distance is too good, and he's gonna take a lot of punches to try to land one or two. And
Mhm.
by like the mid rounds, it's gonna take a big toll on him.
Right. The other one is for the vacant WBO. Once again, has not officially been announced yet. They're going through the ordering process right now, negotiations. That is most likely going to be between Abdullah Mason and Noakes. Who do you see becoming world champion at the WBO?
I haven't seen Noakes. I
Okay,
haven't watched his fights
gotcha.
too closely. Um, but Abdullah Mason's a tremendous fighter. Yeah, I can't give
All right.
an opinion on it because I haven't seen Sam Noakes fight yet.
Fair enough. Now, there was a guy that obviously for the belt that just did get opened up, and that's Keyshawn Davis. You were a part of his camp about 8 months ago when he was preparing for his Gustavo Lemos fight. When you look at that aspect, was what happened that whole entire weekend, was that shocking to you? And then on top of that, do you see him coming back to 135 at any point? Do you feel like that days are over? He's going to 140?
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna fight at 135 anymore.
Right.
He's a big lightweight.
Yep.
He won his title at 135, and I think he's moving on.
Right. All right, well, I got a couple things before I let you go, Lucas. One of those things are completely off regard about boxing, and that's talking about something else you have a passion for. And I was researching about you, but I believe you're also very big into your used car dealership. And I want to ask about that aspect. What about your attraction to that business? And I know specifically it says your preference was for late 1990s, early 2000 Jaguars. So I want to ask about that. What brought you into that avenue of life, and why is that such an attraction point of life for you?
Just something I've always loved
Okay.
is cars, man. It's just a hobby for me. It's just
Okay.
something I love to do. I love to buy cars and get a deal, drive it for a little bit, sell it, whatever, man. It's just like, yeah, it's just something I do outside of boxing, but
Right.
yeah, that's basically my life is cars and boxing.
So, post boxing for yourself, have you ever opened your mind to what that could look like? Is that something you want to get into the car avenue, or is there something else you want to get into? Where do you see yourself going post boxing for yourself?
You have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, you
Okay.
never know where life takes you.
Right.
I mean, of course, boxing is, my passion.
Yeah.
So coaching could be an option. Who knows, man?
All
The
right.
cars are always fun for me, so we'll see. We'll
All
see.
right.
It's right now I got one thing to focus on, and that's chasing the dream, chasing the titles.
I love that. Well, Lucas, I have one final question for you. It's the question I like wrapping up every interview with, and that's talking about your legacy. One day that day will come when you do put down the gloves, you move on from boxing. When that does happen, what do you want the legacy of Lucas Body to be?
I want to be in the Sports Hall of Fame. I want to be known as one of the greatest Canadian fighters to ever come out of Canada, born and raised here. And yeah, that's it. I want my name to be in the history books.
I love it. Well, Lucas, I appreciate you for taking time to come on today. It's been an honor having you on the show, and I cannot wait to see what God's got in store for you. Of
Thanks, bro. I appreciate you having me, Zach.
course, you're always welcome on, man. God bless.
Thank you. Take care.
You as well, man.